Good day. As has been widely reported, President Biden of the United States on 26th January 2021 had his first conversation as president with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. This conversation, we should note, took place just 6 days after Biden's inauguration as president. It was apparently suggested by Moscow last week and was set up and held very quickly. It contrasts with the extraordinary delay, indeed refusal, by the Biden White House to have a similar conversation with President Erdogan of Turkey, which I discussed recently in another program. Media attention in the United States, when discussing this conversation, has focused on the fact that over the course of it, Joe Biden brought up certain issues which supposedly Donald Trump, when president, didn't bring up with Putin when they spoke to each other. These are well-known issues of contention and conflict between the United States and Russia, which make a great deal of news in the United States and to a lesser extent in Western Europe, such as Ukraine, the solar winds hack, Navalny, the story about the Russians paying bounties to the Taliban to kill US soldiers, and that sort of thing. This focus on these issues is actually completely misplaced. What it does, and perhaps what it is designed to do, is conceal the fact that on the one major issue of substance that Putin and Biden discussed, and which seems to have taken up by far the greater part of their call, Biden conceded to Putin on every point. Now, this becomes very clear. Firstly, if you read the readouts that each of the two governments have given about this call, and if you also go back and look at some of the statements that the two sides have made about various issues. Let me first of all start with the White House's readout of the call. It reads as follows. President Joseph R. Biden Jr. spoke today with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. They discussed both countries' willingness to extend New START for 5 years, agreeing to have their teams work urgently to complete the extension by February 5th. They also agreed to explore strategic stability discussions on a range of arms control and emerging security issues. That is the substance of the call. That is the major topic that the two leaders discussed. You can see that they reached an agreement on what to do, which is to extend New START, and that they authorized their respective negotiators to sort out and refine the details, and to do so, moreover, by February 5th. It also shows that the discussions on New START are part of a broader discussion which will continue, which will, and this is what the readout says, explore strategic stability on a range of arms control and emerging security issues. So that suggests a fairly intense dialogue on arms control and security issues between the United States and Russia going forward. Now we come to the part of the readout which touches on the things that the media is focusing on. And here it is interesting again to see what the readout says. President Biden reaffirmed the United States' firm support for Ukraine's sovereignty. He also raised other matters of concern, including the SolarWinds hack, reports of Russia placing bounties on United States soldiers in Afghanistan, interference in the 2020 United States election, and the poisoning of Alexei Navalny. President Biden made clear that the United States will act firmly in defense of its national interests in response to actions by Russia that harm us or our allies. If that looks a little bit like a list of issues that Biden ran through, that is because it is. It's quite clear that what Biden was doing in this part of the conversation was ticking off issues which could then be put in a readout and circulated to appease the very large anti-Russian crowd in the United States who are looking to him to take a strong line against Russia. Note that there is no mention in this readout of any response from Putin, and there's no suggestion here that any sort of agreement or indeed substantive discussion on these points was either reached or took place. The readout actually ends on a positive note. The two presidents agreed to maintain transparent and consistent communications going forward. So that again points to a willingness by Biden to engage Putin in a long-term dialogue. Now, it is in fact the arms control issues, the strategic relationship, that is the really important one. And here it needs to be said very clearly that it is Biden, not Putin, who has made all the concessions. Now, we can say that with confidence because just a few weeks ago, back in October, the United States, when Donald Trump was still president, was saying that it would only agree to an extension of New START, the Strategic Arms Treaty that was negotiated between Biden's predecessor, Barack Obama, when he was president, and the Russians during the time of the Obama administration, that they would only agree to an extension of New START provided the Russians made certain important concessions which would alter its terms. These are two tweets published by the National Security Council. This is Donald Trump's National Security Council in October of last year. They read as follows. On the 16th of October 2020, the United States proposed an extension of New START for 1 year in exchange for Russia and the United States capping all nuclear warheads during that period. That's a condition. It's a clear condition. The Russians had to agree to freeze production of all nuclear warheads, and the intention was to freeze New START for just 1 year. The Russians categorically said no. They, in fact, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister, referred to these demands as delusional. And again, I want to read this. This is from the Russian mission in Vienna. Russia and the US, this is a comment made by the Russians, a tweet made in October 19th, 2020. Russia and the US didn't agree on a nuclear arsenals freeze. It's unclear what the US information is based on. Framework agreements on arms control can be developed at any time should the United States accept our proposals. Those proposals were, the Russian proposals were, for an extension of New START as it was agreed by Obama and Putin when Obama was president. The Russians were not prepared to renegotiate it, to add any new provisions to it, to agree to any further things like a nuclear weapons freeze going forward. So that was what the Russians said. The Russians also, incidentally, categorically rejected certain proposals which the United States was making, that China be included as a third party in future nuclear weapons talks. This was absolutely central to what the Trump administration was trying to do. And it explains why the Trump administration wanted to freeze New START for only 1 year and to freeze US and Russian nuclear arsenals during that period. What the United States was trying to do, whilst Donald Trump was president, was move forward to three-party negotiations, the United States, Russia and China, those negotiations to start within a year, and Russia to freeze its nuclear forces during that 1 year, in return for the US agreeing for that 1 year to extend New START. The suggestion, the implication was that if the Russians didn't agree, the United States would forge ahead, and if there was an arms race, so much the better. I say that because Donald Trump's chief arms negotiator, a man called Billingsley, actually said that. He said that if Russia did not agree to this arms control framework, this new arms control framework, then there would be an arms race, and the United States, having greater economic and financial resources than Russia or China, would be able to outspend them both and win that arms race should it take place. Well, as I said, the Russians rejected that, and Ryabkov said that this is completely delusional. What has now happened is that Joe Biden, has abandoned all of Trump's and Billingsley's preconditions. He has agreed to extend New START for 5 years, not for 1 year, and on Russian terms. And we can say this definitely because we have comments to this effect from the same Russian official, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, who said that the US demands were delusional. This is what Ryabkov says in a interview which has been quoted by TASS, TASS being the official Russian news agency. He said that the Russia and the United States have agreed to extend the treaty on measures for the further reduction and limitation of strategic offensive arms, New START, without preconditions, as Moscow insisted. And then TASS goes on to quote him, "On our conditions," he said in response to a corresponding question by TASS, "for 5 years, without preconditions, without any additions, without any appendices whatsoever." In other words, Putin has got exactly what he wanted. No nuclear weapons freeze and an extension to start for 5 years, and no suggestion that China should be added to the talks as any form of precondition or as any kind of proposal or suggestion going forward. And in fact, if you now go to what the Russians are saying in their readout of this conversation, you can see how pleased and confident with the outcome they are. This is the Kremlin's readout of the conversation, the same conversation about which I read the White House's readout a few moments ago. This is what it says. Vladimir Putin congratulated Joseph Biden on the start of his term as US president. He noted that normalization of relations between Russia and the US would meet the interests of both countries and, considering their special responsibility for maintaining global security and stability of the entire international community. The presidents expressed satisfaction over today's exchange of diplomatic notes on the agreement to extend the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. In the next few days, the parties will complete the necessary procedures that ensure the functioning of this important mechanism of international law on the mutual limitation of their nuclear missile arsenals. Note the words, the careful choice of words. The presidents expressed satisfaction. So the Russians, at least, are satisfied. He then goes on, the readout then goes on to read, they discussed vital bilateral and international issues, as well as opportunities to cooperate in countering such serious problems as the pandemic and in other areas, including trade and the economy. As for international issues, the presidents reviewed the United States' unilateral withdrawal from the Open Skies Treaty, the problem of preserving the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action on the Iranian nuclear program, the domestic settlement in Ukraine, and the Russian initiative to hold a summit of the permanent members of the new UN Security Council. So we remember from the White House readout that Biden and Putin agreed on steps for securing strategic stability going forward. And here we have the Russians setting out what that means. Discussions about the Open Skies Treaty, from which the United States has pulled out. Perhaps a hint there that the US will come back in. Discussions about the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action on the Iranian nuclear program. So the US again asking for Russia's help to sort out its problems with Iran. What the Russians refer to as the domestic settlement in Ukraine. So the Russians do not accept, obviously, that there's any kind of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. They have always said that this is an internal Ukrainian matter which needs to be sorted out by Ukraine on the basis of the Minsk agreements and the Russian initiative to hold a summit of the permanent members of the UN Security Council. So that will bring in the Chinese, but not in the way that the previous administration, Donald Trump and Billingsley, had wanted. And then again, the Kremlin readout ends on a positive note. In general, the conversation between the Russian and US leaders was businesslike and sincere. They agreed to maintain contact. That's very like what the White House readout says about a good exchange of views and agreements and a commitment to maintain an active dialogue going forward. Now, I would say that some media agencies have misreported that last paragraph of the Kremlin readout. They say that it mentioned a frank and businesslike discussion, which some people claim refers to a tense conversation. The actual readout speaks about businesslike and sincere. Sincere means or is taken to mean in diplomatic language, that the meeting was, if not exactly friendly, at least open and transparent, which is, of course, what the White House readout says. So, where do we go from here? The first thing to say is that Joe Biden clearly is very concerned not to be criticised, not to expose himself to the kind of criticism that Donald Trump was. He is not prepared to simply speak to Putin and do so in ways that could be interpreted or misinterpreted either in the United States or in Europe as giving Putin everything Putin wants. So he brings up quickly and briefly topics like Navalny, the US bounties on, the Russian bounties on US soldiers in Afghanistan, the SolarWinds hack, and all the rest, in order to give himself political space. The Russians are completely unimpressed, and careful viewers will have noticed that there is no mention of any of these issues on the Kremlin readout. At the same time, by doing that, by giving the media in the US the appearance that he has brought up these issues which the media cares about, but which the Russians don't care about, issues like Ukraine, Navalny, solar hacks and the rest, Biden is able to conceal the fact that on arms control, he has actually given Putin exactly what Putin wanted. Now, I want to make myself absolutely clear here. I think Biden was absolutely correct to do that. I think the idea that the United States could renegotiate the New START treaty in a few weeks or days, as was being proposed by people like Pompeo and Billingsley back in October, and could set all sorts of conditions on Russian adherence to that treaty and the US's own adherence. I think that was reckless and foolish in the extreme, and it was not going to happen. Making those kind of preconditions risked an arms race, which, as I have explained in a previous program, is one that the United States at this juncture really cannot afford and should not seek. So I think Biden was right to do it, but it doesn't change the fact that in this very first conversation between Biden and Putin, it is Biden who gave and Putin who took. Putin will have come away very pleased from this talk. He got the extension to the New START treaty, which he wanted, and he's got from Biden a commitment to engage with him and with Russia on a long-term dialogue on security issues. The Russians will be very pleased with the outcome of this call. Thank you very much for joining me in this program. Please follow my other programs on this channel. Please also look up our other channels, the Duran, our main channel, the Duran, where I discuss topical issues with my friend and colleague, Alex Christoforou. You should also look up Alex's own excellent channel. You'll find links under this video. Please also check us out on our various other platforms: BitChute, Library, Odyssey, Rumble, all the rest. Please also support us on Patreon, Subscribestar, PayPal, and via Bitcoin. And last but not least, please come to our shop. Buy the great things you will find there: our famous magic mugs, our superb t-shirts, long-sleeved and short-sleeved, with the flags of many countries, our hats, our hoodies, our sweatshirts, and I look forward to you joining me in my next program. Thank you very much.